Hi guys, welcome to the pilot episode of our new map guide series aimed at public games. Please let me know in the comments below if you like the current format, and I will be happy to adjust if you would like me to. The aim of this series is to help out players who struggle on some of the maps or would like to extend their list of favorite spots. These guides are put together part from own experience and part compiled out of a lot of blog posts and forums to make your research easier. In the first guide, we will take on the Karelia map in Assault mode. Now, I do know that quite a lot of you have disabled assault maps in the settings, saying that this mode requires more team play than you could hope for in public games. While I do get your point, I think we can still have enjoyable games on assault maps as well, even if perhaps more challenging ones. At the same time, I do see a lot of people struggling with these maps, as more often than not, using your usual tactics for the specific maps in this mode is a recipe for disaster. I hope these guides will help you have more enjoyable games on these maps as well. First of all, we will look at the defender's side. As also mostly in real life, defenders have the advantage if they are not met with superior numbers and or superior firepower. As these maps are only 10 minutes long, it is enough just to repel the attacks long enough, though most battles are over much sooner than that. That said, being on the defensive side is not an auto-win, and your team has still plenty of opportunities to muck it up. So what's the point of fair for this side? Well, as usual, positioning is the key, and the most usual mistakes are either not pushing out far enough, or on the contrary, overextending. Generally you should push out about halfway on both flanks, where there are some really good choke points you can use to your advantage. Time is on your side, so let them come to you, and fight in a place where you have an edge. Extending out further than that is not advised in the beginning, there will be plenty of opportunities later to be more aggressive. Although you see it quite often, it is also not optimal for the whole team to dig themselves in around the camp circle. You leave yourself absolutely no space to retreat, and if one side falls, the enemy is right in your base flanking the other side, leaving them no time to react. That said, keep an eye on the team deployment as usual. If they do dig in around the base, you will still be better off sticking with them. It's no use going to the choke points alone or with minimal force, especially in the north, where usually most tanks go from either side. You will only get shot up real quick without achieving anything of importance. So before getting a closer look at my favorite spots for each role, let's quickly go over the optimal team deployment. The northern front is the focus point of this map for both sides. Most heavies should be brawling at the elevated choke point, supported by some TDs and or low tier heavies, flanking mediums and arty. Basically anything you can get your hands on. The middle should be kept clear, mainly to avoid enemy scouts lighting up our defenses. There are some good passive scout positions in the volley, or they can zoom down the middle road. Support roles have usually clear shots on this area from their regular positions. The southern front can be played both aggressive and passive. There are some really good TD spots here, so it is a good idea to lure the enemy into a killing field. Otherwise, a few heavies can work the elevated choke point with the support of TDs and flanking mediums. If you advance past the choke point, be careful however, enemy team is usually more spread out on this front than on the other side. Now finally, let's have a look at the suggested spots for each role. First of all, light tanks. Scouts have an important role in keeping the middle of the map safe, spotting any enemies trying to slip through, especially on the east side, and counter enemy scouts that try to light up our defenses for arty. Later on they can flank the fronts or slip through to go arty hunting on the hill. As for the actual scouting spots, on the east there is a slightly exposed possible forward position between the two rocks, or a very handy place just outside the ramp, next to the water, offering both hard and soft cover. On the west there is a very similar spot just off the western ramp, also next to the water. Next up are heavies and mediums. If you are in a big daddy tank, go ahead and spear the attack at the choke points. Both fronts favor tanks with hull-down preferences and good gun depression. If you are in a medium or lower tier heavy, support the front from behind cover and look for flanking possibilities. Once the front is won, you need to reinforce the other side, going straight through the middle, as behind the hill would just take too long, or alternatively fall back and defend the base, depending on the situation. A few mediums can also go and clear out the hill. Both fronts are at the edge of the rocks, at the little hills in the corners, and behind both fronts there is a possibility to circle around for some flanking shots once the enemy has tunnel visioned on the heavies. In both cases, let the enemy come to you and only peek over the ridge to take some shots. We continue with some TD sniping spots. There are some excellent spots on this map for both sides, and from most you can work both your front and the middle. The south needs perhaps a little bit more attention, as the west will be mostly crowded, and sometimes it can be difficult to get shots in unless the enemy breaks through. In the south, we start with this little corner spot with limited cover but excellent view on the whole front. It works best with a long view range combined with binos, so you can take the enemy apart long before they can spot you. Just behind the rock below is my favorite spot for this side. It's not fully arty safe, but the overall protection is quite good, and you can enhance it further by knocking over the tree next to it, giving you extra concealment. On the northern front, we have the usual spots behind the large rock next to the camp circle and the two smaller rocks next to it, but I would suggest to check out two other spots. One is just a little bit further that gives you from one side shots on the middle, and from the other side shots on the main front should the enemy break through or peek over the ridge on the side. The real strength of this spot is that it is one of the few truly arty safe spots on this map. My favorite spot on this side, however, is a little nifty spot to the right with two trees in front of it. These can be knocked over for great concealment, and you have excellent view and fair protection here. You only need to be careful to get your back into cover quickly if you are spotted, as the rock is quite small. Last but not least, the artillery spots. SPGs on this map have no super camouflaged hiding spots, but in return they have excellent view on most of the map. Due to this, you have to watch out for counter-artillerist strikes as well. On the defender's side, my suggestion goes to the bushes left to the camp circle, and the bushes on the little elevation just behind the camp circle. Both spots have limited cover and pretty much undisturbed view on the enemy movements on all of the fronts. As enemy arty is pretty much guaranteed to be on the hill, they can be tracked down and eliminated easily by keeping an eye out for their tracers. You will see as well on the video that the enemy team has almost no cover from your fire, so with good aim you can really rain death from above. Now let's head over to the other side and join the attacking team. Cracking the defense on Karelia in a public game can be a real challenge, but there are a few key points that can make your life a whole lot easier. First of all, while time is not your friend in this scenario, you need to remember that you probably have to crack a well set up defense, so rushing is mostly not a good idea. So what's the point of fail for this side? As most have figured out by now, the hill is a big waste of time with a few exceptions. Arty has really good shots from here if they deploy carefully, otherwise it's just a huge noob magnet for most TDs. You really must have a great view range and signal range to make this work, so for most this will be a wasted match if they go there. Worst thing is, it takes just too much time to get from there to the front to just simply switch places, so make sure you don't waste your team's resources right in the beginning. You are needed at the fronts badly. The southern front is another big trap. It's not impossible to crack, but the enemy can defend it really efficiently if they deploy halfway competently. I would suggest to be more defensive in this front, by occupying some key spots and not pushing too far ahead into the enemy tank destroyer's kill zone until the other front is won, where most of your team will be anyway by the way, or defenders have been softened up enough. You need to wait for a good opportunity here. Quite similarly, people tend to get into a lot of trouble on the northern front as well. The trick is not to advance to the rocks on the far side, but to work the elevation on your side and let the enemy climb this little hill instead. While they should not be doing this in the first place, people just like to shoot at tanks, and more often than not, at least part of their team will overextend, allowing you to soften them up from a favorable position before attacking. Now let's have a quick look at the best spots for the attacking team. Light tanks can have great impact on the attacking team's performance if they manage to light up the enemy defenses for arty, who have pretty much free shots on most of the so-called safe positions. Just make sure to time your runs and let your teammates know about your run. Scouts can also go and flank or distract heavies on the fronts to support advancement. As for actual scouting spots, there is a little stopover possibility in the forest at the southern corner of the hill and some really nice cover just next to the water as well. From here you can either keep the middle area safe, or alternatively you can choose to zoom over straight to the ramp of the enemy base or lodge yourself into that strange little depression to the right of the ramp. This gives you a lot of cover, but mostly you will get pinned here once you enter. All heavies that like to be hulled down can have their moment on the attacking side as well, but that means they can't go knock on the defender's door directly. Most heavies should go to the northern ridge and stay there to lure the enemy on top of that little hill. If you are in a fast machine, you can also choose to go to the corner of the map and take shots from there. The smaller team should go south and aim to hold this front by digging in around the ridge south of the bunker. Once again, lure the enemy out and make them discard their advantage. If you have the chance to advance or you are in a flanking medium, do it towards the middle by sticking to the rocks, as the side of the map will be covered by TDs guaranteed. Just make sure to be quick and do not stop. It is also important to mention that contrary to the defender side, you cannot cross the middle to reinforce the other front, but instead have to continue pushing ahead. Next, the tank destroyers, who have some sweet spots on this side as well. On the northern corner of the hill towards the water, you have two good spots, both beside rocks with trees up front. You can make these even better by knocking over some of the trees, creating an extra layer of camouflage. You have a very wide angle from here, from the middle to the enemy camp, and finally towards the road leading up to the front. There is also a good spot just on the ridge of that little hill where the heavies are fighting it out. Push the two trees over and combine with the elevation, you have a really nice spot. Just make sure to watch out when the enemy heavies are making their move. Once this front has been taken, you can create yourself another great spot aiming straight down on the enemy camp. Just go to the corner and make a little extension to the bushes here. On the southern side, there is also a good spot next to the heavy tanks behind the rock, facing the point where the enemy heavies will pop up. Once again, you can create some really nice concealment by knocking the trees over. There is also another spot in the corner with a little hill. You can shoot over it or beside it, but remember that you won't have any real concealment here. Once the front has been won, you can aim down the road by extending this little bush on the side of the map. Just make sure to stay behind for the others to light up the TDs you are facing right now. And last but not least, the artillery. There is pretty much only one spot that gives you shots on all the important places, and it's the hill. It will take quite some time to get up on the hill, especially in a slower SPG, so you might want to let your scouts know that you won't be able to fire anytime soon. Once up there, from the middle of the hill you have free shots on pretty much everything, so use it wisely and eat up their defenses when you get the chance. They won't know what hit them behind their cute little rock. You only need to watch out for two things. First of all, don't get too close to the ridge to avoid detection, and secondly, don't deploy too close to the side of the hill or it will block out some of your sight. Happy hunting! So that's all folks for the map guide on Karelia Assault. I hope you did find this video useful. Please do comment if you have other suggestions for this map or would have recommendations on the format or the next map I should tackle. Take care, and I hope to see you soon in one of the next videos.